Welcome back to Sidewalk, Skyline podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rogers. And today I'm talking with somebody that I had a conference conversation with back in Collingwood in the fall. And her name is Valerie Good. She's a graduate of Tyndale Seminary. She's a registered psychotherapist with the College of Registered Psychotherapists. And has been practicing in the field of mental health for 20 years. Currently, she works as a clinical supervisor in an accredited community mental health agency. She and her family live in Bradford, just north of Toronto, and her husband is currently on staff at Heartland Community Church in Mississauga. And he was a former guest on the podcast, and I'll leave a link in the show notes so that anybody that wants to go back and review that can. Well, anyways, I always welcome Val, and so good to have you on the podcast today, and a day at home for you.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Yeah. Hey, I always like to hear somebody's backstory that shaped their vocational journey. Um, Tell us about where you grew up. Tell us about your own journey to Jesus, and we'll talk about, some a lot of things today. But I always like to start with who am I talking to? How did God get a hold of your life? What's the story?
Yeah. So I grew up in Toronto. I grew up um, in, I guess, in the Catholic system, in a Catholic elementary school and Catholic high school. Not so much that faith was was mine or was kind of even something that we went to church on a regular basis, but knew of God from that environment, knew that God was something that people believed in.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Yeah, would you say you were a cultural Christian? You grew up in the culture of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
In school, in that it was around me.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so your own journey to Jesus, how did that happen then?
Yeah. So when I was a teenager, I think a lot of uh, what was going on with my family, what was like things that are impacting my family were, I guess my eyes were starting to be opened up to the struggles and troubles that my family was having, and it was
Yeah,
starting to have like a toll on who I was as the eldest child, and trying to figure out, like trying to be there and be something to fix everything in my family's life. Um, and it impacted, I guess, how I behaved outside of family life. So I started to get into some trouble.
hmm,
I guess I lived kind of two lives at the same time. So I was a good student, good daughter, and then I was in the other times of my life, I was starting to get involved in alcohol. I was a regular, I think at like age 15 or 16, a regular at a pub. I had gotten myself, fake ID so that I could go out to nightclubs and get involved in, like, try to maybe deal with the fact that I didn't have an answer to the struggles that were going on in my family life, um, via other validating or self-gratifying activities. So I was involved in kind of the club scene and the drinking scene, um, using my body as exploitative to be able to get the things that I wanted, to be able to um, get drinks at the pub or get get in the door
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
nightclub, um, as my answer to what was going on in my mental health.
Right. Right.
Um, so then when and well, be like, I guess having this expectation that I was going to be the one that fixed everything in my family. So I'll carry the burden of fixing everything in my family, and my response will be I'll fix the stuff in my own world um, by getting into the party lifestyle.
Right.
So
Right.
kind of take it a few years forward, and I got into university, started going to McMaster in Hamilton, um, and I now feeling separated from the responsibility of my family, I now felt like I had the freedom to live a party lifestyle in the university environment. And I perpetuated kind of that in the first couple of weeks of being in university, um, getting myself into situations that were risky situations, making bad, unsafe choices for myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, And kind of by the end of September of my first year of university, I was sexually assaulted.
Mm.
And yeah, so that really screws up mental health further. So something that already was a mess for me, now I'm dealing with the fact that I've had this assault happen. I hadn't really integrated well into the university um, community other than the party scene, which is shallow, anyways, in terms of your relationships that you develop there. And now I'm dealing with uh, um, this assault. I then, I don't know, a few weeks after that, I started to receive death threats via email while I was in school. Um, so got the police involved. It ended up being a separate incident than the sexual assault altogether, but um, because there's a lot of police involvement in that, um, I and fear, given both of the circumstances that happened to me, I felt it very difficult to travel around campus or to be a part of, any the community and the risk there. It doesn't then create community around you.
Right.
In my first year of university. So uh, had to drop some classes or choose to not take classes at night, which is when they were offered because it was didn't feel safe. Um, they did end up finding the person that was sending the death threats and charging them, but I felt very isolated and on my own to be able to
Yeah.
deal with these two kind of major incidents and harm that had happened to me. And my um, answer or my solution to how I solved stuff happening to me, difficult things, was through, um, dangerous choices
Right.
and putting myself at further risk. And so
Yeah.
it was this kind of self-perpetuating harm.
Mm.
And then after my first year of university, got through that barely, passed some classes, failed other classes, had dropped other classes. It was a bit of a mess. So that double lifestyle that I had been living before, where I was like, okay, I'm a decent student and figuring it out for my family, and I'm a decent, and then I've got this um, this lifestyle wasn't wasn't fitting anymore. I wasn't a decent student anymore. I had distanced myself from my family because I couldn't carry their burdens, and I was isolated. And I got to the point where I had probably my second year university, I got to be suicidal, and I had I would was planning to kill myself, and each time I'd kind of talk myself into, okay, I'll go out for outside for a cigarette, and then when I come back, it'll be good. I'm not helping myself if I'm out there smoking anyway. So and I would go and I'd come back and I'd be like, okay, you know what, I can do it. I can get through another day. But lots of days where I'm just sleeping through the entire day, missing class, not engaging in campus life. And it got to the point where one day, um, I couldn't manage anymore to keep myself alive. And um, I had um, I had collected up medication that I was prescribed or whatever that I just kind of held on to. And the plan was to um, swallow a whole bunch of medication, and then I had a knife that I was going to cut my wrists and make sure that it was sure to happen. And I had was in the process of doing that when um, I kind of listed in my head. I don't even remember if it's in my head or actually out loud, but I was alone in my dorm room and I said, nothing's working for me anymore. I don't, my family life is not working for me anymore. My academics is not working for me. My mental health not working for me. I don't have a social life. The party lifestyle is not working for me. Nothing's working for me anymore. There's no point. Nothing's working. And I heard an audible voice from God that said, but you haven't tried me yet.
Wow.
And I'd like to say, I went, God, okay, I will try you. But my response to God was, you're right. I haven't tried you yet. And when you fail me too, I'll know that everything has failed me. Um, but that got me to put down the stuff for that night because I had to prove to God that he wasn't going to cut it for me either. Um, so I continued in, I left that evening, went to bed, woke up and thought, okay, now what I've got is I can continue the lifestyle that I'm having and continue to do what I'm doing. And God's just going to bail me out of it because he said I can rely on him to bail me out of it, right? That's the deal. So I'll continue the life I'm having. And then whenever I need it, I'll just let God know and he can bail me out of that situation. And so I carried on for the next year, continuing in that life, continuing to, now I had, okay, God, I screwed up again. Fix this for me. And there was lots of times where he did, lots of miraculous occasions in which he bailed me out of situations. I didn't recognize that there was at that point that there was it was kind of supposed to be a mutual thing, right? That I was actually supposed to respond in ways that say that I honor God for that. I just was like, you're my safety net. And I got into my third year of university, and at that point I started going to the Christian club on campus. Um, Thinking, okay, I got to figure this thing out if I'm, relying on God then to bail me out, then let me go figure out what else like he can do for me. So I started going to the Christian club on campus, and it was there that I started to realize that there was and steps I had to take
Mm.
forward as well
Yeah.
um, to in response.
Yeah.
And so somebody had said, "Well, we're the Christian club, but we're not a church. So you need to go and get a church." So I went and I started attending a large church in Oakville at that time and got involved in a small group through that was near to the campus. Um, and over the course of that year is when I started to realize that it was supposed to be a relationship. It was supposed to be a mutual thing,
Mm-hmm.
that um, God was there to help me out of things, but I was also um, supposed to show care to Him as well through my what I did for myself and how I cared for myself. So things happen in that, like miraculous things happen in that year, where I was a smoker, as I said, and I would like walk home from the Christian club with a cigarette, and 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 then realize, you know what? I'm not probably supposed to be doing this to my body. Like, if this is not but as honoring God if I do this to my body. So then I remember um, one of my roommates saying, "Let's go out for a smoke." And I said, I don't think I smoke anymore." And he said, "What do you mean you don't smoke anymore?" I'm like, "I think I forgot that I was a smoker." He goes, "When?" And I'm like, I think I haven't, I don't think I've had a cigarette in a month. I don't know how that happened. And he goes, "So you're a smoker? You're not?" I'm like, "I guess I'm not. I'll come out and stand outside with you if you as you have a cigarette." But I don't think that's my thing. I lived in that year, I lived in what was a big party house off campus at that point. So we were known as like the house that had the keg parties, and then the house to party at. Um, and it was a bit of a weird clash, because I would go out on Friday night to like a small group through my church, to come home to hold my roommate's hair while they were throwing up from drinking. Or I would be at the party trying to figure out how to be like present in that environment, while still a very new believer myself.
It
And then
sounds like God knew how to change your heart from the inside out. And if somebody else tried to convert you, it may not have had the same result. But it sounds like God was changing you. He was kind of involved in all of these very personal ways. Like, how does a person forget that they're a
yeah,
smoker? Like that,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there was lots of people that had made comments or made me challenge and think about the way that I viewed the walk,
Hmm.
that had influence. Like, I don't want to take away that God used people. Um, but I was like, in a university campus, it's a lot of young people who are themselves like coming to
Yeah.
a place where they're figuring out their own faith, kind of separate from their parents. And so it wasn't so much an environment uh, of leaders in front of me that were, had been doing this for years. This is
Yeah.
a bunch of us really all just trying to figure it out, and then
Yeah.
a lot of people who had grown up in the church in this Christian club that didn't know what to do with me, right? Like, I was a I had was still partially living a lifestyle that was so foreign
Hmm.
to them. Um, like, I remember like going, yeah, again and again. I'm in this party house, and then I'm going in, I'm hanging out with Christians, and then I'm back hanging out in the party house. And there's even one other really cool occasion where, so one of my roommates was was one of the main drug dealers for the campus, uh, the McMaster students. And we had kind of put in place that he was not to deal drugs in the house. And if he was going to deal drugs in the house, that he should do it in his own bedroom because we didn't want it to be that we got caught up like
Right.
in dealing, like that we got the police
Yeah.
charged us. And I remember there being one day where my room was in the basement of the house, and um, I had taken some time to be in prayer and worship, and I'm reading my Bible, and it was a, a really intense, probably one of the most intense spiritual encounters that I'd had. Maybe where the Pentecostals would like to say I was baptized in the Spirit. I don't know. I didn't know that language then. It wasn't a Pentecostal church that I had been attending. I don't know what it
Yeah.
was all about, but it was an intense God encounter where the rest of the world outside of my room ceased existing.
Mm.
And I I was in that moment, and it wrapped up, and I left my room, and I had gone upstairs, and my roommates were all up in arms. We were so upset um, because my room was under the living room of the house because my roommate had set up uh, himself to be dealing drugs out of the living room of our house. And there was just people coming in and out of the house, and I was oblivious because I was in my God moment
Yeah.
downstairs. So literally, like the floor above me was um, this, multiple drug deals happening, and then I was downstairs having this God moment, and recognizing that the kind of the weird kind of juxtaposition of what my life was at that time. Like there's lots of times in that house, like I couldn't leave a Bible out to be out in the public area. I'd find it in the garbage the next time. But it was meaningful to me. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's it.
Um,
It's interesting because like I say, it was God changing you from the inside out, and and these contrasts that were emerging that nobody had to tell you. You were seeing it for yourself and coming to new points of realization, like coming out of that God moment into that mayhem. I'm sure was very clarifying for you.
oh, that year consistently was becoming more and more clarifying
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
That year was like multiple occasions like that where it was m- a miraculous, drastic, like uh,
Yeah.
difference in
Yeah.
my in what was going on for me and how God acted. Um, so I think it was in that year that was probably, if I had to put a date or a time on when I said yes
Hmm.
to Jesus, I don't know that I would put it back that day in my dorm room when I when I challenged God to, to not screw up. I think it would have to be that year. But it also became a bit of a negotiation for me with God because I didn't, from what I also saw, um, was I looked at the Christians and I said, there's a lot of, how do I say this? It came across to me like it was an in crowd to be in the church and to be a believer, and that where I was coming from was the out group. Um, and God was giving me the opportunity to to become in the church and be a believer, which was a great opportunity. But I didn't like the idea that I was leaving people behind.
Right.
Like that these were people that, yes, we're screwing up. Yes, we're throwing my Bible in the garbage. Yes, we're uh, challenging me as I tried to live a better lifestyle. but they were also so broken and so hurting, just like I was hurting and broken.
Yeah.
They weren't the bad guys, they were broken people. And so I struggled with stepping into the world of like Christianity and church and faith because I didn't, I'm like, I got in the club and you didn't.
Right. Right. Something deeper was going on than that partisanship, right? That I'm in or I'm out.
Yes,
Yeah.
that they crossed the line
Yeah.
part.
And
Yeah.
and I think, that really is the heart of Jesus, that we be in the world but not of it. That
Hmm.
we have a genuine love for all of our neighbors, not just the ones that go to our church.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, well, fast forward a little bit then in the story to Rob, like your husband, man. How'd that part of the story come about? Was So you're a Christian now when you meet Rob? You've been
Yes.
going through
Yeah.
this change, and he was a Christian when you met him?
Yes. He so it is interesting kind of uh partnership, I think, because he had grown up as a believer. He had grown
Hmm.
up uh in poverty, but as a believer. Um and then by the time I met him, I think he had started as a youth pastor, just had started. So he
Yeah.
had come from uh, uh, a big church background, and then there were like, and it was just such a interesting
Did you
kind of
guys meet at
connection.
church?
Sorry,
Did you meet at church?
we had met at a church, but it wasn't our church. We
Mm.
had met. I had gone with my cousins to their church and for an evening service. And then he was leaving that church. That was the church that he had grown up in, but he had come back to say goodbye because he was now, youth pastoring at this other church, and we had met there. Um, yeah, so
First impressions?
passionate. Like he
Hmm.
was a very passionate person about his faith. And by the time that we had met, I was very passionate as well. Once I realized that my what God was asking of me was to be in the church, but connecting to people outside of it and saying like you're loved and you're cared for and you're to come into. He also had that heart. He had a heart for evangelism and for reaching
Yeah.
kind of beyond the walls of the church and caring for people outside. And so that was what drew us, I
Hmm.
think, together. Just had a very different kind of way of getting to that point.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so then it makes sense that you would uh, continue your education and end up in social care, community mental health, and all that kind of thing. And um, for the purposes of this interview, I'm uh, you're not going to speak on behalf of the College of Registered Psychotherapists or any agencies that you work for. You're sharing just your own opinions, your own heart, and from your own faith. And I just say that because I want to be sensitive to the things we're going to talk about. That you have a code, that you have a professional code that you have to live by. And so one of the reoccurring themes for me as I work with Christians that serve in community care, like you do, or those who are involved in community building enterprises, is this idea of being bilingual. And as Canadians, I don't mean French and English because a lot of us in Canada get by with not having both official languages, but some jobs require it. What I'm talking about when I say bilingual is being able to speak to two completely different cultures or worlds. So when we're messaging something to the church, we speak in ways that people of the church can understand. We speak to the language of the value systems. But then, if we're applying for a grant or talking to the city and getting permission to do something, then our language shifts, it changes, and so we speak the language of social work. We and so as a Christian who's a psychotherapist, I'm sure that you're constantly adjusting your language to your audience. Nonetheless, as a person of faith, you're always going to have an accent. Um, how often do you find that your identity as a Christian colors or skews conversations that you're having in your field of care?
Um, I think I'm in community mental health because I'm a Christian, because I can offer psychotherapy, quality psychotherapy services for free, because they're government funded, which is fits my heart because mental health in my mind shouldn't be something that's costing um, an arm and a leg in order to be
Yeah,
able to have it.
it's already costing people everything to have the
Yeah,
struggle, right? And now, oh,
yeah,
well, we can make money off of that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it colors it colors from the beginning, from why I even chose this instead of going into private practice. I could be making a lot more money in private practice, but I'm in community mental health because I'm a believer,
Hmm.
because I think that that's where I can offer services and I can reach the people. The clients that we get in community mental health are the ones that are struggling so deeply. Um, they're the ones in the dark corners of society that people are not reaching. And by being in community mental health, I can be in those dark corners with people. And so it influences the way I exist in my workplace. And then therefore, it's going to influence the language and my heart, because my heart is coming out
Hmm.
of, like, as a Christian, and I look to how God cares about these people in the dark corners. It's I my thought is that I can show the love of Christ in those dark corners because I am connected to the Lord. So I don't know that I'm like, oh, right now I'm talking really Christian, and now I'm not. Now I'm talking the language of the world, because it's just me.
Yeah,
It's me all the time. And
you've found a way to integrate faith into your public life and your community life,
Mm,
um, and to be focused on who you're talking to.
right,
Yeah.
right. There are probably times where I know how to use the language of the the world to, mm, yeah, maybe to translate or and to interpret something that uh can be can bring Christ into that environment, without necessarily people recognizing, oh, now she's, proselytizing, now she's evangelizing to us. It's more kind of knowing the language that's existing in the popular language of
Yeah.
of now of what the words that they want to hear that will allow space for Christ to kind of enter into that environment. Um, I just don't know that I'm always doing it obviously, or if it's just become like how I am.
It is who you are, right? Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, often if a church were applying for some kind of community grant to do something for the common good, they wouldn't necessarily know how to phrase it because the it's not always the world that they're most integrated into, and integration is really important as it with our faith, being able to live out that that salt and light calling. And sounds like you figured that out for the most part, how to just be who you are in Christ, and to lead with compassion, and and do your job, right? Helping people.
I think so. It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's interesting when you talk about like churches filling out like a grant. How's what's the language? I don't I think at first maybe maybe we don't know how to listen
Hmm.
more than we don't know how to talk.
Oh, we can talk.
We can talk. We
Yeah.
know, and we can put on the language. Like
Yeah.
you could give me a grant application you have, and I'll translate it
Hmm.
into the jargon that uh wants to be heard. I don't know that it would be effective though, still, because
Right.
I think what we forget to do is just listen to try to understand.
Mm.
I think we miss that we're talking um in two very different worlds. Um,
I think you're right. I think that we can be ideologically and agenda driven to pursue those things that we want to pursue with the desired outcomes that we want to see. That's completely different than being in place to listen and respond appropriately.
to know what the need is, to
Hmm.
know what's being asked in in the community and by the community, whatever the community is.
Hmm.
I I don't know that we're listening long enough to hear or to we're listening with our own lens and with our
Yeah.
own kind of
Yep.
ideology in place as to what they're trying to say, as opposed to trying to say, no, help me understand
Hmm. Hmm.
who you are and what you're needing. Um, one one instance that I see this happen a lot is in the current dialogue around like transgender
Hmm.
identity.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
the what I hear uh, from the church world, the Christian world, is is a lot of language around this idea of being transgender is is wrong, and there's a lot of ideology around it. That it
Hmm.
isn't the right thing to do, and it is damaging and it's harmful. And I'm not, I don't necessarily care to get into that argument. I don't think it's God's ideal for us. Like it is. I'll hold to the conservative position around uh, what is how we look at transgenderism. Okay, so
Hmm.
put that aside. Know that that's my stance,
Yeah.
but I don't care really to get into the ideology around transgenderism. What we need as a church to understand is that that person who is identifying as transgender is not identifying with an ideology. They see it as them. This is my identity. I am trans. I am a person whose gender doesn't match my sexuality.
Right. They're
And
not necessarily on a mission to change the world.
right, to
Right.
have an agenda to groom or to change people.
Yeah.
They just they see it as their identity and whose they are. And we're stuck as believers, we're sitting in this world where like let's talk ideology. And they're
Mhm.
saying your ideology is talking about who I am as a person. Now, whether you and I want to agree or not that that should be their identity, we can have that discussion. I think that as I'll agree, we should, as believers,
Yeah.
seek our identity in Christ and what Christ says of who we are. But that's irrelevant to what they see as their identity, and that's where we're hitting at odds, and we're pushing people in that community away from the church because we've got our perspective, our ideological
So,
perspective. They've got their
so
identity.
how do you how do you practice okay, so you work a lot with children, youth, and their families.
Mhm.
And when a child or a young person comes into your orbit, your care, and they're identifying in LGTQP, you know.
The 2S LGBTQIA
There we go.
community.
There we go.
Yes.
Um, so you're living the experience of being in place to care for them and learning to listen to them. So what are some things that you're learning in that posture? Because it really does take a genuine, humble posture to listen to somebody that fundamentally you may not feel agreed to their conclusions.
Yeah. So I think the first step is that I have to put my ideology aside, my overarching like belief of what it is what it means to be all of those things. Because I'm not going to be invited into that orbit of that person if I need to announce my position from moment one. And that's what's happening. I don't mean to harp on the trans example. To me, this is
Yeah.
an example. There's lots of spots in our world where we can kind of get caught up in
Right,
this
right. But there
debate.
is a real deficit, I think, in the Christian community to know how to have
How,
these listening
yes,
encounters and these conversations.
yes. So what we do in this world is we say we meet a trans person, and from moment one, we want to argue with them about what their pronouns are and what their name should be and how I should refer to them and whether they look like the gender that they're purporting to be. And we're not going to be invited into their world, into their community, to their dinner table if we're first presenting our position on a certain topic.
Right.
So I'll use the pronouns that the person asks of me. I'm going to use the name that the person asks of me. I'm going to first build relationship with the person. I am going to show care about that person, and I am going to understand the person that Jesus loves of that person. And I'm going to believe that the Lord, has a desire to know this person. And I, therefore, have a desire to know this person because this person is valuable and is worthy of me getting to know and not getting to argue about who I decide that they are.
Right.
And from there, then it leads to me having relationship, having a genuine uh, opportunity to have conversation with people, to to be invited to their dinner table, to invite them to mine, to care for each other to the degree that then who I am is going to present to them and has been and will be, and they can see themselves as being in relationship with a believer, with somebody who is a Christ follower and who is choosing to have a relationship with them out of the desire that God wants to have a relationship with them. And it then gives me the opportunity to, as we do in any of our relationships, to challenge each other, right?
Mm.
We're going to call things into question. I would hope that Kevin is, if you see stuff going on in my world, now we have a relationship that you can call that out for me. But it's not because we met yesterday. It's because we have, a relationship. And
It's not really any different than, I mean, you're working with people in crisis. That's a given. If
Mhm.
if if they were completely whole and not needing any support, they wouldn't be coming to the agency that you work for, right?
Right. I think, yeah,
And
for sure. Like
so,
people come for mental health support because
yeah,
they're in a place of
yeah, yeah,
of need and
and
crisis.
and when you were very much in a very dark stage of life, following some trauma and being in the party scene and just really losing your your moorings, your identity, um, God spoke to you, and his kindness, his patience, his way of communicating with you matched what you were ready to hear, right?
And his patience with
Hmm.
me, right?
Yeah,
In taking the time to show up and care for me over the long haul, um, made the difference for me. And that's, I think, what I, as a Christian, therapist or not,
yeah,
like whether we're talking about in my agency work or in my personal life, it's it's through listening and it's through
yeah,
caring.
yeah, yeah. Um, how have you? We had a brief conversation at conference, and you were telling me some things that I know you're not betraying any confidences because you're not giving any names. But how have you seen God at work in the lives of some young people in the LGBTQ plus sector?
Mm. Um, I
Are you able to share those stories?
um yeah, I think if I can like speak broadly,
Please.
one of the things that I'm noticing happening, and when we talk about uh, psychotherapy work, we're having um, people come into the psychotherapy world, whether it's at my agency or in private environments, and they're coming up and they're saying, "Hey, I'm walking away from a trans identity. I'm walking away from uh, a, a lesbian uh, identity. Um, it's not fitting for me, And can you change my name in your systems? Can you go back? Can we revert back to the um, to the pronouns that match my sexuality? And we'll say, well, why? What's going on? And what's happened? They say, I found Jesus, and now I recognize that I can't um, be that anymore. And what else is okay? Well, who's the church? What's the church? Who are the people that are influencing that are having impact on this person? Because we need to understand, as mental health professionals, we need to understand, like, how do we integrate faith into that person's mental health walk? That's not our expertise. As much as I'm a Christian in the mental health world, it's not my expertise. So how do we incorporate, like, their pastor, their leader in their community? And they'll say, I don't have one. I don't have a church. I don't have a Christian community around me. How did you come to know Jesus? Uh, and there's various ways. The internet, watching various influencers on the internet. I'm seeing how people are talking. I'm witnessing other people's lives happen and change. And I don't have that for myself, but I know that Jesus is seeking after me. I'm meeting with Jesus the way I did when God spoke to me and by myself in a dorm room. That's what they're saying. They're saying, I don't have a Christian community. You don't have somebody to call on. And yeah, that's where and we're left with, well, we don't want you to be on your own with this, but I don't know where to, I don't know how to integrate you. And unfortunately, I don't know that we're doing a good enough job in the Christian community to make safe spaces for people in the 2S LGBTQIA community to show up and to explore and to understand and learn more about Jesus. And what I'm afraid of is that um, that those who are are connecting with Jesus are then just as easily led astray into something else. The internet has another rabbit hole that it's gone
Yeah.
down. Um, because well, I both love that Jesus found them through the internet, and the Lord is even using that, right? Redeeming even that to reach his people. I don't think God has commissioned the internet to be his hands and feet in the world right now. I think he's commissioned the church to do that.
Mm.
And so I would love to see how, or to figure out how those worlds, like, I feel like I'm got a foot in the world of, like, the non-Christian environment, the foot in the world of the Christian environment. And but I feel like it's so stretched apart. I feel like it's so, again, whether we're talking about the LGBT community or we're talking about another community,
Yeah.
the divide is so far between Christianity and the world in so many ways that it's hard to make that leap over. It's
Mm.
hard to feel connected and belonging in that environment. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to bridge that divide
Well,
better.
maybe you can riff on this a bit. Talk to the church at the grassroots of community. There's people all around me all the time. Um, some that are my spiritual brothers and sisters of faith, others that are not in the same space. But what are some of the best practices for the common good? So for somebody who says, I want to follow Jesus, period. I want to be the most loving to my neighbor that I can. What are some best practices for the common good? I'm thinking not so much of how can my church do another community event where we get everybody in the park for an hour and give them a hot dog and a balloon. I mean, that's good too. But in terms of this deeper love, this deeper integration of the heart of Jesus in the world, how do we place ourselves in meaningful ways to love our neighbors better? You're doing it, so
Yeah,
riff on
it's a
it.
good question. I don't know if I know the answer. I think I'm still working that out myself as
Mhm.
to what I'm doing, what I could be doing better, how I could be doing it with more impact. So I don't know that I have like all of the answers as to what that looks like. I think I talked earlier about listening first, and developing genuine relationship before we get into to preaching.
Okay,
Um,
let's break it down.
yeah,
I don't know how to listen. Help me, teach me how to listen.
instead of looking at us as the church or us as a Christian as having the answers and they need them. Um, or that we know what the problem is and we need to convince them. Um, look, approach people with the idea that we're figuring this out together. We're going to do life together and we're going to figure it out together. And so it takes us away from my project, the community is my project, whatever community it is, um, to we're working alongside. We're working together and we're figuring this out together. And so if it's setting up a barbecue in the community and handing out hot dogs and a balloon, then is it that the Christians are there setting up a barbecue and handing out hot dogs and balloons? Or is it that the community together is working together to figure out what does the community need? What does that community need? What are they asking to that we can resource? And then how can we, Christians and non, bring that to the community together? And maybe it still means handing out hot dogs and balloons in the community, but it's that that non-Christian uh, uh, guy that you know what I don't know, has lots of swear words and uh, maybe is under the influence of some substance, who's who's there alongside, who's cooking up like roasting the hot dogs on the
Yeah.
barbecue, and we're in genuine relationship together with that person, and it's not that we have something to offer and that they're the ones that have begging and need. It's that we are together figuring out life. And I mean, we'll talk about the poor. There's a lot of people who are socioeconomically struggling that I work with as well. And we didn't really get into a lot of that community. It's probably a larger population that I serve than anything. Um, but and we come at it like I have the dollar and you have the need, instead of we're trying to do this world, this life together. And how do we have relationship and not look at it as hierarchical, that I've got it figured out and you don't, and have a genuine relationship with each other, that where we're serving alongside of each other. We're carrying alongside of each other. Um, yeah, I don't know if that.
I think you're onto something there. I think that being a good listener always requires a patience and humility uh, to to a good listener is investigating the image of God and looking. looking for God in each person. Where's
Right.
God at work? What what is, when you were going through your darkest time back in school, and feeling suicidal, and everything was at its darkest, and God spoke to you. um, that's so profound that it rerouted your destiny. You could no longer stay where you were and pursue what you were pursuing. You had to, you were in a posture where you could actually hear God speak, and
Hmm.
there was nothing of your self-reliance or your ideology that was allowing that to happen. It was actually in your alienation and your trauma and your darkness that you saw light.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, he might have been using a megaphone. I'm I'm not sure there was
Yeah.
much of me that gave me a position to be able to hear God as much as he was he was ready to show up and make
Yeah.
himself heard to me. So
Yeah. I'm not
I think we
okay and you're not okay and God speaks.
and God spoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Val, I know we didn't rush to big conclusions in this conversation, but we sure had a lot of great things to talk about. I really appreciate your insights and your authenticity as you're just learning each day, how do I love God and how do I love my neighbor.
Mm.
And there's other things that we could have talked about. I was gonna uh, have a conversation with you about abuse of power, but that's probably another whole
That's
episode
a
for
whole other
another day.
conversation another day. Yeah. Something I also very interested in having a conversation about, but yeah, that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
another soapbox to get on, I guess.
All right. Well, we'll have to do that again someday.
Sure.
Thank you so
Okay.
much for taking time with me today, and for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin, and thanks for your heart as well for reaching our community because that is it's kindred spirits, I think. So
Amen to that. I think one of the gifts of the Spirit to the urban church in Canada is good social workers like Valerie Good, people who are meeting the vulnerable sector in our community, people that are in crisis, people that are needing help and assistance of various kinds. And thank God for people like Val who are on the front lines of community need. On our next episode, I'm going to be sitting down with Sue Keddy. And actually, it's going to be the next two episodes because Sue and I had an awful lot of good things to talk about. From her years as a missionary in Hong Kong to being involved in Ontario with helping churches to do massive community events, reaching out to their neighbors, to the work she's now involved in. There's just a lot of great things to hear from Sue Keddy. Um, I think that as we go into the interview with her, you're going to find some things about Sue that you didn't know. And I just want you to come back on our next episode and see what the Spirit is saying to the church. Until that time, I'm your host, Kevin Rogers, and you've been listening to Sidewalk Skyline Podcast.